allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome everyone. Happy New Year. We'll get right into it. We've got a little bit of a longer meeting. Along with the approval of minutes from regular session, December 4th, 2025. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Okay. Is there any discussion on the minutes?
Should I abstain because I had to miss that?
Yes. Okay. All in favor? We will move on to the financial report. And do we have to do executive minutes separate?
Was the executive in there?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
not on the agenda, but you can
Yeah,
still
all right.
vote it
Okay,
separately.
so we
Yeah.
have an approval for the executive session minutes from December 4th, 2025. Second. Any
Yep,
discussion?
I forgot about that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Someone.
That's okay. Second. Okay. You're backwards. Listen, it's Monday and it's been a day. All in favor? Okay. And Mary abstained. Okay. Okay, now we'll go on to the financial report.
So these are your financials as of December 23rd, so before the Christmas break. Nothing all that new and noteworthy except your budget transfers that you voted on in the last meeting are reflected in this report. So that covers all of your unit, your ESP negotiations transfers. And are there any questions?
I just have one. About the nurse's aide salary, that looked like it jumped.
Yeah, that, I'm so glad I remembered. There are two people that share, it's a systems issue. It's a
Okay.
systems issue, and we have been working on trying to figure out, I think we might need to just totally delete them both and put them both back in. There's two people that share 1.0. Your, I don't want to call it clerical, administrative assistant nurse. Those two people that share it, the system is for some reason encumbering one of them as full. That's only a 1 day a week, which is
So this is
blowing
not
that line
real.
out. But she's not getting
It's
paid full.
inflated, yes.
Yes, no, good catch, because we did have that
No, we did
conversation
talk
just
about
before
that.
the holidays and forgot about it.
And I thought I was gonna get it taken care of.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a bigger issue than I anticipated, so. Was that your only question?
Any other questions?
This may have been I'm sorry.
No, no.
This may have been a conversation that we had last meeting, and I'm just not remembering, but there's a couple things. Let's start with the special education transport. Did that change? Because from last month, I can't remember. That's a lot.
It has been over a lot all year long. So,
Yes.
and yes, we have talked about it a couple of times. It is always a huge issue and very hard for us to corral. But we knew last year we were over and used some of the rural aid funds to cover it. This year, we talked about the fact that we do have positive balances in the tuitions, the special ed tuitions.
Okay.
That's gonna cover that. So
Okay.
we're okay.
And then the mechanic salary and the training salaries in the same area. Bus thing.
Yeah. So your mechanic salary should be split between the Burgess budget and Tantascwa.
Okay.
So I will confirm that that is a true split, 50-50. Sometimes because he also drives, so there's some additional
Okay.
time and Saturday registrations and inspections. So it just depends on what's going on. I will make sure that he should be a true 50-50 split, but if he's not, I will also confirm that. And then the same thing with
Well,
the,
the training salaries are certainly over, because
Yeah.
we have been training away.
Okay.
So that's okay, it's a good problem to have.
Yes, no, definitely. Okay. That was it.
No, I just want to make sure she knew.
Oh, okay.
Move on to communications.
Nothing new since our last meeting. Our last meeting, we had the Southern Worcester County electronic communications, and the only other communications were, for those of us that I got the little MASC calendars I handed out. Anybody who's feeling left out, I'm sure I have a pile of them up at the office and could.
Okay, we move on to the principal's report, Mrs. Kelly.
All right, so Happy New Year to everyone. Just enrollment figures are somewhat stable, as you can see. Recognitions, I just want to thank Jamie Deschard and Bethany Wolfing and everyone who helped support our families during the holiday season. Thank you to Lucy Caldwell and Brianna Embry for making our holiday concerts incredibly successful. It was wonderful, wonderful shows, and thank you to Jessica McGarry for organizing our annual community service project for the Festival of Giving Tree. In curriculum instructions and assessment, as you know, report cards were distributed on December 12th. Access testing for English language learners will start on January 8th. Mid-year benchmark assessment window opens on January 12th. Just an additional thing that I neglected to add to my report here is Officer Taitula participated in the DARE training a few months ago. It's been quite a number of years since we've actually had full DARE programming at the school, and that is coming back. We're starting with 5th grade. It's supposed to start today, but the student materials did not come in. So we're excited to have that coming back. So I'll give you an update on that as we move forward. We have an upcoming professional early dismissal professional development day on January 16th. Our focus will be on vertical alignment, so looking at alignment of our curriculum from grade to grade. Burgess PTO, the holiday shop was an incredibly successful event again this year. So just thank you to everybody who participated. The cookie walk took place during the band and chorus concerts. Thank you to Katie Lynn Gendron and all of the volunteers and Paige. And I have my curriculum updates, department updates for you, the things that you're using. Thank you. Any questions?
For Mrs. Keller?
Move on to
The main event of the night, the main event. Okay, so we're gonna try a little tag team here. I'll kind of give a little overview, and then Kristen and Kathy are gonna, we just have a couple extra copies, right? Kristen and Kathy will go through a little kind of page by page. So just a reminder for those of you who have been through in the past and those who have not. And Caitlin, you probably sat over here a year ago, right? So just a reminder, this is the first pass that we present to you what we think we need next year to continue the services that we've been providing this year. So off the bat, we are saying that it's level services budget, not looking to add anything new, not looking to cut anything, we never are. For the most part, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Kathy, in this particular case, getting level services does pretty much mean level staffing. Sometimes it's not the case. That is the case here. So we're presenting to you, we answer questions as you have them. There is no vote tonight. Tonight is just about making sure you know what we're looking for, what we recommend for next year, and answering the questions you might have. If you walk away tonight and say, I wish I had asked, just email Kathy or I, and we will get, anytime we get a question from any one of you, we'll make sure you all get the answer and go from there. Next month, after we come back, having answered all questions, you will be asked to vote the bottom line budget dollar that you want to bring on to March, which will be the shell. The public hearing document is actually kind of drafted in the back end here. But all you're looking to do in February is say, this is the dollar figure, I want to move on to the March public hearing. Which again, we go through and we post, we let your finance committee, your selectmen in any community know that want to come, and we'll go through it again page by page or line by line, and it's not until March that you take your formal vote of what you want to ask for the town at town meeting. We typically, I don't even know if it's legally, but I would say legally, we don't go up. We can go down from February to March. We can say, let's bring this whole thing, and then get to February and say, we actually don't need something, let's reduce. And we've done that at town meeting and voted a slightly lower number. You don't want to go from February to March and vote a higher number. That is not something, I don't think it's legal, even if it is, it's a little disingenuous because we've put out notices to communities to say, based on this, and they choose whether to come or not. So to turn around and say, now we're asking for more, it runs into a problem. So you're not voting anything tonight, you're gonna ask questions. As you can see in the first 2 pages are just summaries, we're really gonna go into the detailed pages. The first pass here is just over 3% increase, which I think is pretty good, given there's a $140,000 bus that's back in. And if you remember last year, there was a lot of conversation about pulling that bus out to try and get the town through last year's budget cycle because it was very tight. I am sure it's not gonna be any better this year, but we've gotta get that bus back in. So that bus is about 1% right there. So in reality, I think for us to be looking at a budget that's just over 2%, were it not for the bus, is pretty, I think, pretty good. Hopefully will be seen as respectful to the town, but we're not looking to cut anything, we're looking to continue the great services we've been providing. Make sense? Okay, then we're gonna start, those first 2 pages are just various different summary cuts by different categories. We're gonna go the 3rd page into your packet, which is page 1 of 7 for detail. You with me? Starts with administration, which is 1000 series, and that's a state coding system for that 1000 series. So we'll go off and have Kristen start there and then move into Kathy and the educational ones.
So you're probably looking at the bottom number and saying, why is it less? And that's because the Burgess population share is down for fiscal '27, so that is sort of representative in the number there. That's, in my opinion, that's the
Yeah,
strongest.
that's the only story on this page.
That's the only story
So
on
this
this
is the
page.
budget, I think most of you, maybe not all, those of you who were at the November meeting, the joint meeting, we voted the total central office budget and then chopped it into pieces. So what's here is Burgess's piece of that total budget that was voted in November, and because of the total that we support, the percentage for Burgess is 23.91% versus current year it was 24.41, so that brings your total cost down a bit. I think the total budget was right at 2% for the central office budget. Yeah. Does that make sense? Any questions on that page? Okay. Mrs. Pelly,
So next.
what's worth talking about on the next
Well, I
page?
would just say the administrative assistants. You'll notice that it's a decrease from the 2014 to that 2014, hello, 2026 to 2027. Keeping in mind, we did have a retirement this past year. And I would say, other than, I think Kristen's going to talk a little bit about the title. Okay.
So within the teaching salaries, you're gonna notice down near the bottom of this page 2 is the Title I amount has been reduced. This year, we are actually receiving less than the 80,000, and because of the uncertainty, we feel much better going in with the $30,000 number. It is a big change, but we do feel it's the smartest decision.
Given the unknown with the current budget.
So many
I know.
unknowns.
Yeah,
And
2
then-
other things, which
yeah.
I didn't even talk about earlier. The projection, the per pupil, per grade projection is based on current enrollment.
And then keeping in mind that that Unit A number there, that professional teacher salary, has the projected increase for all teachers. So you'll notice some other lines in the budget are even, and that's not because we're not going to give them a raise, it's because we don't know what that negotiated amount is.
So the total pool of dollars is on this line that, once we negotiate, we'll transfer out. In the same way we did last month for the ESPs.
And then,
Other than that, level staffing. Any questions there?
No?
On page 3, all of your support staff, these are locked-in numbers, given their contract, that's all settled, so that's all locked in. Again, even your support staff, we're anticipating the same number of staff
Right.
in your ed support as well as your special ed support.
And you'll notice a decrease from 2026 to 2027. That is, we had some retirements, some very veteran retirements this past year.
Oh, this is your support,
This
right?
is-
So
this is
line
the-
300.215,
The
about halfway
special
down the
ed
page.
classroom assistants, it's the same number of assistants, it's just the salaries will be less, projected less.
We're on page 3, right?
On page 3,
Okay.
So under the,
So 302.15,
Oh,
third line
special ed
down.
classroom
I see where the
assistants.
numbers are.
Sorry.
Thank you.
It says 18.
Yeah, that's a good chunk down, and it's because of turnover. It's because of just retirements, some seasoned retirements, but still the same number of staff we're anticipating.
Was that just that line? Because the special ed teacher salaries and contracted services are also down?
Yeah, the teacher salary was a little bit of turnover, very little though, actually. I think it's really, it might be more about stipends, and remember, though unless there is someone who is moving up or over, it would be level until we negotiate. Contracted services is just based on
projected
your current students receiving what they're currently receiving and what we anticipate next year. So yes, currently, we feel like we're gonna be in a good place. I
It
suspect
might
you.
pop up on the Tantasco budget,
Right,
because it could be.
that's what I was gonna
the
say. You've
services
got
can't
sixth
be-
graders that are rolling up. Yeah, yeah. What else is happening there?
I'm jumping all the way down.
Oh, yeah, you wanna talk a little bit about?
About the textbooks?
Yep.
Yeah, so just realizing that you'll notice a decrease in the math. That's because our budget plan is paid up for the Bridges program, so that's reflected there. But you will see some increase in the area of ELA, reading and writing, so we're doing the Wilson training that we discussed recently, plus other program enhancements that we're looking at, as well as the Open SciEd that we've talked about, the science program that's being provided through the Department of Education, but there are consumable materials that will be required to be purchased, so that's what you see there.
With Bridges, will that number go back up at some point, or is this like we?
Yeah, no, it will at some point. What we've been doing for, God, a couple of decades, I think, between math and sometimes it was science, is Bridges, for example, is a 6-year contract that we pay over 3 years.
Okay.
So we'll have 3 years of not having the big, other than some consumables, and then we'll have to loop back in for 3. So it gives us 3 years to work on another subject and get them, and then it's worked out pretty well. Every now and then we have a year where we've got 2 heavy hits, but we've been able to spread out that way. Anything else on that page? There's not a whole lot going on this year, right? On page 4 of 7.
This is where you could point out the level.
Yeah, so we are, so here's an example, exactly. Your technology teacher is level. Been here long-term, not moving columns or steps. When we finish negotiation, we'll transfer into that line. Yet your media teacher is still moving little steps. So we've reflected on these lines any step or column movement, but not COLA changes.
Right.
Okay? I was gonna say something else on this page. Oh, we'll get to it in a minute. Your hardware, your technology hardware, and then on the next page, your capital facilities items. We'll go through the capital plan in a minute, once we're done with this document. Okay? That is all I see on this page. Any questions? Okay. And again, on page 5 of 7, you see your nurse is still moving steps. Your assistant nurse is the equivalent of 2 full-time folks. Kristen, how's transportation going, Kristen?
I am we are.
I'm afraid to say it out loud.
So, we brought in, we had another fully licensed driver start today. So he is learning some Sturbridge routes, but at this point, we have 13 route drivers and a full-time spare, which is very good because we have a couple of plans there's some illnesses that we have a maternity leave that we need to plan for, and some sort of rumblings of maybe some retirements, we're not sure, but we do feel like we're in a good spot at the moment with people coming and wanting to work for us. Any increases here are their contractual rate increases for mechanic, the coordinator, and the driver, and other salaries.
And that's where, obviously, we already talked about the bus.
Yeah.
So that's a tough pill to swallow, but we talked about it over and over again last year and did our best. Your oldest two buses are over 100,000 in miles, so we're looking at cycling them through every 9 or 10 years is the life that we've been getting from them. We need to stay on that and not make that go any longer. As you can see, we did budget 50,000 more in specialized transportation. Is that gonna be enough? Don't know, but
That's my question.
let's put it in there and see how the year or next year goes. There was one other small thing, but it's gone from my brain. And just a reminder, what's right here in this section is Burgess's cost only. When you get to the public hearing document, which is here for your FYI, we won't go through it page by page. On that document, we show the total cost of Sturbridge transportation minus the amount Tantascwa will pay to get to this net amount. And while we're on the specialized transportation Mac Daddy number, the reminder for those who either forgot or didn't know, that's all Sturbridge. So everything above that 950,000 is only elementary school Burgess transportation costs, okay? But the specialized is everything. It's every Sturbridge student ages 2.9 to 22 that needs specialized transportation. And that is to make sure, same thing with your tuitions, as we've talked about it before, your tuitions covers every Sturbridge student that's going out of district. By putting it in your elementary budget and not putting it in the Tantascwa budget, you're sure you're only paying for your own. Sturbridge is only paying for Sturbridge students as opposed to putting every out-of-district tuition and the transportation cost in that Tantascwa budget and then dividing it by some percentage. There could be a year that you're paying more than your share because others have higher costs. So that is something that we need to keep reminding. As much as it's a big number, remember it's for all Sturbridge specialized students.
I have a question on that. So,
Yep.
well, yeah. So we're decreasing the ask for the instruction line and the tuition. I'm jumping back to that first page, 1 of 1. But we're using these lines to cover the overage that we are for the transportation, right? So are we confident in these numbers?
Hold on a minute, so tell me, you're on the summary
I'm on the
document?
summary document.
Okay.
Okay, so I just want to make sure.
And you're
I'm
looking at the
following
special ed section.
that. Yes, yep.
So that would, again, these documents do a lot of things, a lot of different cuts, a lot of ways of
Right.
looking at
So
it.
I just
So
want to make
this
sure
front
I'm
page takes, it just is a snapshot of your special ed services. So
Right.
this is saying that, yes, there is a decline in the cost of your budget instructional lines, which are your teachers and your aides. And we talked about
Right.
that classroom aid line that's down about 50,000.
Okay.
That's how that's locked down.
Right,
Then it adds in your transportation and your tuitions to get the total cost of special ed.
right. So I guess my question is because, so this year we're over on our tuition, but our transportation budget, and we're using these other lines to move into, kind of make up for some
The
of that.
tuition lines have money left.
Okay, so are
Yes.
we, my question is, are we confident that because we're decreasing so much in the tuition line for special ed, that this only 50,000 extra ask is gonna be enough for that tuition line? Because now we're decreasing here.
Yeah.
Are we gonna have enough
We-
to cover it?
We don't.
Okay.
We're trying. Now, remember, when you
Both of those.
decreased two very expensive tuitions
Right,
because they either aged out or moved
Right,
out, which is
right.
the most that I like to say in
Yeah.
public session.
Yeah.
But that also means two
more.
likely singleton runs that aren't being transported.
Okay,
So therefore should decrease your special ed transportation costs.
okay, I just wanna make
Does that
sure
make sense?
Yeah, I just wanna make sure we're
So,
gonna have enough
yeah,
to cover
I
if we're
know,
gonna
it's-
move that.
it is always a bit of a gamble. But if I look at last year at the million, if you look at what the actual expenditure was $1,000,005. Do you see that number to the left there? So the 950 is getting closer to that.
But not
The-
quite asking for it.
The special ed transportation staff is not under the same contract as your full big bus staff.
Okay.
They actually don't have a union contract, but we try to do right by them. But that pay scale is a little bit different than the big buses. So we think it's reasonable.
Okay.
Now, the cost of fuel could,
Yeah.
who knows?
Maybe it'll go down.
That's where I am in January. I am in optimism mode.
That's my resolution, everyone.
Good questions, though.
Okay,
Good questions.
okay. Sorry, keep going.
And even like the Tanquasua Regional Specialized Transportation, she did work very hard last year to bring in some of those more expensive routes back in-house as well, so she's evaluating it on a regular basis.
I have a couple questions on this page
Yeah.
as well. So the 140,000 for the bus, that's one bus, correct?
Mhm.
Which is the same as what we did 2 years ago, but it was
Correct.
125.
Correct.
That's just
Yep.
the cost of it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other question was just about the substitute nurse. So we went from 600 to 1,750. I mean, both of those are pretty small numbers.
They are pretty small numbers, but the 600 probably, it has not been enough. That's 2 or 3 days.
And these are both full-time, right? This is.
When,
This
and
is the
again, we
substitute.
haven't
Oh,
always,
oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, so it's just the
That's the wrong
subs. The subs, I think it's 175 a It is day for a 175. substitute nurse these days,
Okay.
so,
It
there
is
you go.
175.
And a few years ago, we didn't even have a separate line for the substitute nurse, we were just putting it all through substitutes, so we've started trying to put that in a more real way,
Cost.
Okay.
An issue.
to reflect better.
Okay.
Yeah,
And this is Burgess only.
correct,
Okay.
correct. Okay,
Any other questions?
page 6 of 7. Yeah, I don't know what's here, but
There's nothing.
okay. Yeah, well, I mean, there is an increase there for custodial supplies based on last year's expenditures. Last year's expenditures was just over 40,000 between the cost of supplies themselves and the amount that we're using in our aging building. Everyone keeps thinking of it as a new building. It is no longer new. Utilities, we're gonna hold for another month and come back and see where we're at, because if we look at last year's fuel and electricity, we had a decent surplus. Now, from a fuel point of view, December was far colder than I liked. We've not had this cold and a rough December in a while. Usually we coast through December and we start off January with a false sense of security. So I'm sure we're gonna be spending more this year in heating fuel. So we'd like to wait another month or two to see if we dare bring that down a little bit. And because we did, for the current year, we brought the electricity down, but last year's expenditures in those two areas were lower. So it's an area that we could take a look at. We built this budget in October. So, you know, we could get to February or March and say, all right, now we've seen over 6 months and let's see what it really looks like. What else? We're gonna get to the capital items in a bit, the projects, that big number way down the bottom. If you'll remember, our hardware line is actually down and the facility project line is up. So when we get to the capital plan, you'll see, usually our capital plan is a combination of those two lines and we figure out each year what we think we should focus on. Other than that, again, a little bit incremental in your supplies and maintenance and your contracted services, because those costs are increasing to keep up with your facility. Anything else on that page? Okay. And we talked a little bit, actually, the note on the side isn't even needed anymore. That was our internal conversation when we were originally building the projections for the tuitions.
Are you still in the 4,000, sir?
I am now on We've moved on to page 7 of 7.
Okay.
So with nothing other than continuing to fund the copiers, I'm now in the lovely tuition area.
Very good.
So I'm just saying, you can ignore that notes and comments. That was internal, trying to figure out what to do with circuit breaker. For any of you that are well-versed in circuit breaker, maybe before 3 or 4 years ago, circuit breaker, the law implied that it was going to fund a certain portion of specialized transportation, and it did not. For decades, it did not. It started a few years ago. So our first pass at this did not include any transportation reimbursement. Well, that's $400,000. And we said, yeah, no. I believe that the story is strong enough in the state. It's been 3 years now that they have been funding circuit breaker to include at least 50% of the transportation. And there continues to be an understanding that the priority really has to be funding circuit breaker to the fullest extent of the law, because that is a budget breaker for districts when they don't. So we are saying, yes, they're going to fund and they're going to include transportation. Therefore, that brings us down to the number that we have there for the private tuitions. And that's what we're planning this year, and we have been told they are funding it for this year, so that's how we got to the savings. So that all being there, it's really, I do have for you kind of information, usually it's asked, and I really love to answer questions before they're asked. So for your tuition lines, the biggest story is right above that. Your mass schools, those are your pathways, and in Brimfield, your stars, and in Brookfield, your goals. So that's what's in that first line. So while we've got some savings in your very expensive private tuitions, we've got an increase in those that we can keep within district. So that's that big number up there. Just for your information, I have it way over here. I write it. All right, 20. So that first line, your mass schools, covers 20 students. 20 students for regular tuition and some additional ones that might get summer services but aren't in a regular program. Right. Your private, that big number in the private is 14 out of district private tuitions, and your collaborative, which is in this particular case all Southern Worcester County Collaborative, there's 3 there. So it's a big number. We know it's a struggle to kind of corral. We're looking good right now. I'm always nervous. We come out of the holidays and kids who are in a good place sometimes do shift in the last 2 quarters of the year. But that's a total of 37 students that are out of district. So called out of district, really out of, right, yeah. But they include your pathways, which is not really out of district.
And each of these, I'm just trying to understand
Yeah.
the differences. They provide different levels of service for
Yes.
students.
Yes.
And it's determined at the school level.
With the team meetings.
Through the IEP process.
Okay.
Yeah. What's interesting, it's like the good news, bad news. It's always great when we can have our local programs and keep kids in their school, in their community. That's our goal, is to be able to serve them locally. Obviously, when we can't, we look at where is the best place. Ironically, when we are really successful at building our in-district programs and keeping the cost really low, those students don't get eligible for circuit breaker. Because the circuit breaker is based on a threshold, I think it's $55,000 or $60,000 is the local's base. And circuit breaker only kicks in over that and then is supposed to pay 75% of whatever is over. So when we keep them local and serve them as we should, though none of those mass tuitions or even the collaborative are subject to any circuit breaker reimbursement. So it's the catch-22, but it's the right thing for the kids.
And the tuition line is moving them to any of the special ed tuition line is moving within any of those categories, correct?
What you mean on the front page summary?
Massachusetts schools, the private
Yes.
schools, and the
Those
collaborative
combined all
programs.
together is what we put in for the tuitions, yes.
No, sorry, for the transportation.
Oh,
It's
yes.
that, but plus the
Yes.
Tantascwa, Sturbridge students at Tantascwa.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah, and again,
some
what I-
kids who might not be in
Yeah, and what
right.
what I don't have is of those 34, well, you know all 20 are gonna be, those mass schools, they're all gonna be elementary age, because they're those programs that we have in the elementary. So I don't have offhanded, and we'll certainly have it by public hearing, how many of the other 37 are elementary versus secondary. So there's certainly a handful of them that are actually secondary age, which makes sense. Sometimes it's a higher percentage when it makes sense that students we can serve while they're younger and smaller locally. As they grow, their issues get a little more complex. They get physically harder to serve, and sometimes those are the ones that by the time they're in secondary or high school, we just can't serve them the way they deserve to be served in us. But we got pathways programs there too, so. Any questions on the tuitions? So, again, kind of in a summary point right now, that brings us to a grand total of 3.14%, which, remember, last year, we ended up going in with a 1.17 at the elementary. We only did that by pulling that bus out. So I'm absolutely gonna be reminding all of our town leaders, if we hadn't pulled the bus out, we'd be at just over 2%. If we didn't have the bus in right now, we'd be just over 2%, which I think is doing pretty well. What we like, the next 7 pages or so, we're not gonna go through, that's just the document that ultimately we will use at public hearing. And I'd like to go to the last 2 pages in your packet to run through the proposal for the capital planning, your physical plant projects, as well as technology. I know Kathy sat in with the facilities folks and is talking about the physical plants. Do you
So
wanna talk a bit
I
about that?
want to really focus on the physical plant, because that is the one that's a little bit higher, and has different things in here. So just taking a quick look at it, we've got $20,000 ask for Johnson Control. That's sort of our automation system. That's a system that integrates our HVAC, fire, alarm, our security, our lighting systems, where we're able to monitor all of those systems. And Johnson Control is the vendor that we use for that. And that requires consistent upgrading and maintenance. The next ask is for $10,000 for facilities replacements updates. These are the floor machines that you see, the vacuums and things such as that. We're looking for $10,000 there. HVAC itself, so the actual parts of our HVAC system, we're looking for $50,000 there.
Do you remember exactly what, I can get more information on that one. There's gotta be something specific.
There is,
That-
there's an air handler that needs to be replaced.
Okay.
And then the next line would be the field maintenance and updates. We're looking to purchase a new mower. I don't even know the date of our current mower, but we are looking to purchase a new mower. And plumbing upgrades, updates and upgrades. That's our faucets and toilets primarily. Our classroom faucets are breaking down. We're going to need to do some replacing at that level. And so that's it for physical plant. Any questions on this one? So we go to technology, and the asks are as follows. So we need to have a replacement plan for our workstation computers. So the ask is for $10,000 there. Mobile devices need to be on a constant upgrade, because as they get older, we're no longer able to service them, update them.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Are those the walkie-talkies? Does it include the walkie-talkies?
No.
Or is that for the town? Didn't we have like an issue with?
That's
what
for
the
the
town.
Okay, keep going, sorry.
That's fine, no
Yeah,
worries.
no, that's gonna be your Chromebooks.
Okay.
That's your
So,
Chromebooks.
you
Yep,
know, we
sorry,
kinda
yeah.
cycle through 5 years max of Chromebooks
Mhm.
and their licensing. So by making sure we're constantly replacing Chromebooks,
Mhm.
they shouldn't be more than 4 or 5 years.
Teaching tools, most specifically the smart boards. So the $20,000, we have, a replacement plan that we are following. The next ask would be for printers at $10,000. We need to be having some type of plan for replacement for our printers. Major infrastructure work, so servers, switches, batteries. This is all just the inner workings of our technology within the school. We've reduced it for this year because we had an increase in the physical plant capital, so to keep us within a range. We have reduced that for 1 year, but as you'll see for the future years, we've asked to go back to the $65,000 set. And I think that is it for
this unit. Yeah, that air handler unit really forced us to move up your physical plan, and we're fine with, for a year, holding off and then getting back to, and I think combined, as you can see, between the two categories, 150 to 200,000 of capital items a year is where we're looking. And again, you have a capital plan, then we get to the year and we find out, can we fund it? And we hope we can.
Any questions?
Are there any funds or grants coming from the state to assist with some of these capital improvements, such as making things more efficient, green energy?
Yeah, we keep an eye out for them. We did build the building with a lot of green and got a lot of discounts as we were building it. Your town actually, I think, still has a consultant that looks at various different green projects, and you've had light bulbs replaced here to help bring down the energy cost. And what was the other big thing for a bit? I'm having a little brain freeze. So you do have a consultant who's always looking at what options there are. Some of these are things, most of this stuff is just, it's infrastructure. That if we don't put it down here and remember, all of a sudden it's broken and we say, well, we didn't plan for it and we're in trouble. If anything was bigger, I think if we've got 150 to 200,000 of capital items in your budget, that's reasonable. If something massive showed up, I'd be going to the town and saying, we should submit an article. Because you don't want to inflate your operational budget. But these are things that, they're paper and pencil these days. We've got to keep going with your technology and your server and your HVAC system. It's just part of regular operations.
100% agree, but the Center for, there's a center within the state government trying to apply new technologies and some savings to higher ed for the same reason, to their heat pumps, or trying to bring in heat pumps. And trying to, so I was just curious if they're providing anything at the K-12 level through the building fund administration?
For this building, we haven't found any, well, plus we haven't found any needs, never mind the grant availability. Everything is running pretty well, that there's not a massive, and even for the next 5 years out, we think we're in good shape and we're running pretty efficiently. I think we built the building at the right time, just as a lot of that stuff was on the radar. A lot of the other smaller buildings that we're absolutely looking at is heat pumps better than the system that you have here.
Okay.
This is a pretty nice tight system that you can manage it's like you don't open the window in the summer. You keep things tight, and that's how to be best energy efficient. But we're always looking to see what they've got out there. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
And building the plan out actually gets us a discount on our insurance.
Oh.
Because being thoughtful about how you care for your
Yeah.
building actually
Excellent.
keeps your insurance costs lower. So that's a reason why we build it out.
Yep.
MII gives a discount.
So, no vote tonight. Again, if you think of questions over the next couple weeks, shoot them to us. The good news is, by the time we meet again, well, it's good news, bad news. By the time we meet again, we will have gotten the first peek at the governor's budget. Because that will come out by the 3rd to 4th week of January. So we will know what the governor's budget looks like, what initial Chapter 70 looks like. I'm trying to be Sally Sunshine, but I gotta be realistic. I don't anticipate any bump in Chapter 70 because we've got a decrease in enrollment going on in the building. The biggest peak will be what's happening with rural aid, because that story certainly seems to have a lot of leg. But you can't get blood from a stone, so we'll see. But we'll at least have some numbers to be able to share before we ask you to vote what budget you wanna move forward to March with.
We'll also have another quarter of specialized transportation billing for our Tantasco operation, so we'll have a better idea if that number is realistic or how we're tracking for this year. Right now, we only had Q1, which is July, August, and September, so those are really hard months to make the decisions on yet.
Yep. That is it for the budget and the superintendent's report for tonight.
Thank you. Okay, well, with that, we'll open public access. Anyone? We'll close public access. Move on to the subcommittee reports, the Rural Commission, Mary, do you?
Yeah, thank you. So it's a little bit quiet right now because of the holidays. We did have a meeting just before the December holidays, talking about a lot of these same things: declining enrollment, how circuit breaker funds can or cannot be used. Transportation continues to be a huge concern and huge part of budgets. There's a really good article in the Globe today about healthcare costs and staffing costs at schools, and some rural regional districts are highlighted because their budgets are so tight. Kudos to the central office team for not using temporary funding for staffing. I said that before and I'll say it again, because we're not up a creek because of that. There are districts in Eastern Mass, as you may all know, that people are resigning because of terrible decisions. So thank you for putting us in that position. But we are in very good company of folks trying to, as you say, squeeze from stones, and it's really tough. There is excellent momentum for rural aid needs, but the willingness to then put funds behind that may not be there. So we'll know more in another 4 to 6 weeks about how much progress actually was made in these pushes to get people to listen in Eastern Mass, frankly. But we're in good company. And I would not bank on any additional funds, unfortunately, but it's being asked for because it's within the law.
Right.
So that's where that stands.
And I would dare to say, Mary, you weren't here last month, and I did let folks know that at the conference, MASC, and Katie Lynn was there, there was definitely a very strong message of support. So I would even dare say that the question is ability more than willingness. So where's the money come from? I think the message is there. I think our legislators understand. And I was sharing that even at the conference, I watched it a few times, kind of the Eastern Mass, getting a little bit lectured and being told that SOA funds helped them.
That's right.
It did not help us.
That's right.
And now it was telling those urbans to say, you got to campaign and help the rurals.
That's
But
right.
again, in the end, where's the money come from?
Yeah.
No one's going to give up money to give more to us.
No. But they'll wish us good luck.
Yes.
But I was not here last month because of a new job at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, and just totally unrelated. There's a lot of Sturbridge kids doing really well at UMass Amherst, so kudos to you all. And now it's on the record that Tantasco's got a great reputation. Because like, that's the tan place. So, and the village, I'm like, I don't live in the village. But thanks.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I have right now, but I'll be sure to share when we learn more.
Thank
Great.
you, Mary.
Great.
Negotiations, we don't have dates
No, you didn't
yet.
have a meeting, so
Yeah,
no report.
And then building and physical plant, Katie Lynn and I Deb's going to reach out to Robin and Andrew, and Kaylin are going to meet with them about the turf. If anyone has questions they'd like to forward on to the two of us before we go and meet.
We got a good handful of questions at our meeting in
We've got
December.
plenty of
They haven't
questions.
met yet, so
Correct.
we're gonna connect as soon as this meeting's over and at least get a couple of date options.
Yep.
And then I'll work on setting up that meeting in January.
And so moving on to Ms. Whitney, Tantasco Rep.
I was not able to make the meeting.
You weren't, because you were
Oh,
here
yeah.
Lovely
with
family.
joy, having children sing.
Yeah,
That's
sorry.
great. It was actually
It's a
my
good one.
favorite meeting,
I
because
know,
in
it's a good
December, The meeting is always at the high school instead of at the junior high, always starts off with some kind of music, so it was the high school band this time, and then we went upstairs and got some treats from Culinary Arts, some soup and cookies, and then met, I am in so much trouble, the two superintendent scholars, Logan Oko.
Yeah.
Oh,
Evie Spencer, I think?
thank you, thank you. Lovely, lovely, lovely students. And I always sit there and read their bios and their accomplishments and feel like I'm not doing enough as a human being, because they are just so accomplished already. So it was that, and then I don't think there was a whole lot more. It was really mostly joy.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Moving on to unfinished business. No?
We all agreed we're gonna wait till February to put the turf discussion as unfinished
Correct.
business. So that's really,
Yeah.
it's still unfinished, but we intentionally didn't put it on this
Yes.
agenda.
And new business? Anyone says any? Okay. The executive session is put on the agenda, but we actually don't have anything to go into executive session for, so we just have that on there as a placeholder. So we can actually have a motion to adjourn if there is one. Second, all in favor? Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you all. Happy New Year. Hopefully we can get a little more snow while we're sitting here, and it's all gonna be on the.